everybody. Welcome back to the Can't Be Bothered podcast.
Yes. What are we? Episode 4 now? 4.
Yeah, 4. Yeah, I just saw it. I wouldn't have remembered had I not seen it in front of
There
my
it
face.
is.
Yes, episode 4. Like I said last time, this is feeling like I've been doing this forever. I just love talking about this shit, and this just feels like home.
Oh my gosh. I love you holding your mic too. You're just like on your stage.
This is the episode where I'm going to be holding it. It's coming off the microphone stand. I am so excited to talk about recapping Salt Lake City and Orange County. It's been a wild season for Salt Lake City already, and so much has happened for Orange County. So we got a lot to talk about, and I'm here. This is my stage.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we do have so much to talk about. So, yeah, just for our listeners to know that we are going to be having a recurring segment that we're calling the recap, putting the cap in recap with our Capricorn energy. So as we watch, the newest seasons and the latest episodes, we're going to be recapping that with y'all. And this week we're going to do OC and Salt Lake City. So super pumped. Oh my gosh, so much has happened and we've hardly talked about it at all.
Yeah, Abby and I really haven't talked about it or anything. We've been making our own notes on the side. So this is really exciting. And we do have a shared doc where we put everything, but I've been avoiding her side so I can really get the fresh hot off the press opinions. And I think actually in good fashion of us introducing the segment of recap, we are honoring the queen of Capricorns across the Real Housewives whole industry. So Heather Dubrow obviously is an iconic Capricorn queen who is Dubrow. Okay.
Dubrow, yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Not Theodore.
We have a Heather over here in Salt Lake City and a Heather over here in OC. So I'm just trying to be mindful of the two. But I am standing in front of her $55 million home, which obviously was such a flex for Capricorns around the world. That was so great to see. And yeah, it's giving OC, it's giving palm tree, it's giving luxury. And I just love this for her.
I love it too. Again, it works really well with you on your stage with your mic. Just can picture you walking around, running the show over there.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. And I also showed up with the wine cellar, all her champagne in the background. That was that's what I think about when I think about her house, not her bird stained glass for all her kids, but the champagne. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I can never
fair
forget.
enough. Fair enough. You're a mom, but my babies are in alcohol form.
Just to think of somebody else living in that house with the etching of her frozen embryos is so funny to me. Oh gosh. Okay, so we wanted to start off with Orange County. The finale of the reunion just came out. We are officially done this season, which I'm actually kind of sad about. This has been such an entertaining and drama-filled season. Every episode has been giving. I've just been loving it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I've been hearing a lot of people online say that it was such a terrible season. People didn't like it. I'm like, what's wrong with you? You're on the wrong side of history here.
Just because there wasn't physical altercations doesn't mean it wasn't drama filled. Come on, there was so much here to unpack emotionally. Across Salt Lake City and Orange County, we have a new cast member too, which always adds a nice sort of change to the mix. And I think Jen brought a lot to us for her first season. It was really great to see, which we'll get into. But yeah, I feel like the season was really great. I'm honestly gonna miss it. I've been looking forward every week to seeing what's been going on with these ladies. So yeah, it's over. It's wild.
I know. It does feel weird for it to be over. And the reunion was only 2 parts.
Yeah.
I feel like they could have gone for a third, but I guess they hashed some things out too. And it seemed like Andy was kind of okay, let's move on. He had his moments.
And there's some other, it kind of started coming up near the end of part 2, but I've also felt sometimes in part 3 reunions where they start kind of repeating the same drama that they already kind of put to rest earlier. And yeah, I'm glad that they kind of took every topic really gave it the time and moved on. So I'm happy to see it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I kind of wanted to start off talking about Heather, if that's okay, because she is like the true queen of the season. I think may get some different opinions on this, and that's okay. I feel like she's a bit of a polarizing character on the show.
She is.
Yeah, as Capricorn women are, you know.
I mean, that is so true. But I am a big fan of Heather. Absolutely
Yeah,
love her. I feel like we're probably going to have a lot of similar perspectives on her this
for
season,
sure.
but definitely this year she was very polarizing for people.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I have to say, like, I personally think that she was the best dressed out of the cast on the reunion episode. Like they all looked beautiful. And I actually have to say that there was a really funny meme about Taylor's outfit looking like a vape. Because she does. She looks like a vape so much. Like so much, so many of them are like ombre neon color. And people are like me dressing like a vape so that he'll pay attention to me. And I thought that was just the funniest shit ever.
Oh my God. That's hilarious.
Yeah, but I do feel like she's really come into her own this season. Like her style is really just elevating. I feel like she's coming out of her shell even more. And I know she's been on the show for a really long time, but yeah, her style was just really great this season. And I loved how blunt and honest she was. And I feel like the way she showed up in all black really showed that and gave it to us. So I thought
Yeah.
she looked amazing.
Oh my God. I completely agree. And I did watch the some of the Watch What Happens Live episode that Heather was on, and I can't remember what was said, but Andy was basically, they were just like, how was your season? And Andy's like, well, she showed up to the reunion in black and she was the only one, so if that doesn't tell you anything, I don't know. I just
So
felt
true.
like, yeah, super fair. But yeah, she is so classy and graceful. I really liked some of her outfits through the ranch trip. Like she had some really
Yeah.
cute outfits there, and it was
Yeah.
just nice to see her put her personality and her spin on it. I thought she was super graceful. Yeah, I feel like she got the shit kicked out of her this season though, and like from my perspective unfairly. I actually felt that it was a very vulnerable and very raw season for Heather,
Yeah.
more than we've ever seen. And I don't understand where everyone was coming from with this idea that she was cold and condescending and snobby. I
Yeah.
think like Heather is who she is,
Yeah.
and what you see is what you get. And maybe that is sometimes a little bit condescending, but
Yeah.
she doesn't hide that. Like, she doesn't do anything to hide kind of her status and her frivolousness at times,
Yeah.
and but she also has so many great qualities that I feel like are just completely overlooked,
Yeah.
and I just find her to be super charming in her own little privileged way.
Yeah, that's so true. I love how she's so unapologetically herself and really owns her lifestyle and her life and doesn't apologize for, having a beautiful home. I think that that's great. And there's been a lot of conversation actually between like Salt Lake City and OC talking about money. And people, I think, view showing wealth on the show a bit differently now than they used to. And there is almost this like shock factor, and maybe it seems like distasteful to talk about like the amount of money that she sold her house for, but this is why we watch Real Housewives. This is part of like the draw to it, is like these are very successful women and affluent women, and like I'm kind of here for her like just owning it. At least like I may not agree with everything in her life, but I don't think that she should be feeling ashamed of it by any means. So
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, there were a couple of moments, like with her kids going to college, and they were all sitting around the table, and I just thought she's just so self-deprecating and like super self-aware. I can't
yeah.
remember what her kids were saying, but um they were saying something along the lines of like, you come and see us, and she's like, we're workaholics, like that's not gonna happen. She's just
Yeah.
like so self-aware, and I just find it really endearing. I don't know, I
Mhm.
feel like she's just unfairly bashed.
Yeah, totally. I mean, even aside from all the shit that these women were giving her over the season, I think there was a lot of like internalized stuff that was projected onto her, unfortunately. But she is a very like down to earth and real person, and I really do appreciate that about her. And I really do have to say I feel like she was really ganged up on this season, which was really hard to see. And there was a lot of moments where the only thing that we did talk about before filming this was like her tapping out was super relatable. I feel like that, I don't know if that's a Capricorn thing. I don't know like what that is, but I think that's something that I 100% resonated with. And there just comes a point where you can't keep talking about something over and over and over again and continue to defend yourself and feel like these people who are supposed to be your friends and who are supposed to be sticking up for you, that you've known at the very least colleagues for like what they've been doing the 17 seasons, so at least 15
Yeah.
years. Like that is a long time to be just constantly advocating for yourself. And yeah, I totally resonate with her just tapping out and just saying, like think whatever you want of me. I'm done.
Yeah. No, 100%. I relate to that as well. So maybe it is a Capricorn thing or maybe not, but
Yeah.
um I felt like it was totally fair, and I don't know, I just felt like there were a lot of double standards and like things that they held her to that they wouldn't, it was a double standard with other people.
Yeah.
Um and I don't know. It was just honestly hard to watch, and I don't think one time this entire season anyone actually ever checked in with her or asked her how she was doing. Like
Yeah.
she was going through a lot of transition as well with her kids moving
Yep.
out, and you know, she talked about like wanting to start in her career again and
Yeah.
like do more things for herself. And
Yeah.
you know, it was very clear that she was getting caught up in a lot of the drama, and I just feel like nobody ever checked in with her. And that does
Yeah.
happen sometimes when you are a person who is portrayed as very strong and together all the time, but she's still human. And you know, just because you have a tough exterior doesn't mean that there's not something going on under the surface. And I would have liked to see them step in and like support her a little bit more.
Yeah, I 100% agree, and I think it was really disappointing as much as I love Taylor, and I'll kind of get to that. Like,
Yeah.
and there was a point in Mexico where Heather had walked away and she was like sitting alone by herself, and Taylor had come up to her and was like, just what's going on with you? And to see Heather kind of bring that conversation up at the reunion and kind of throw it back in Heather's face was really disappointing to see. And I also think like that is a big reason why a lot of people, and I want to say Capricorns, like can kind of isolate themselves because there's this feeling of like nobody's really like I'm done, I'm over it, like they don't get it, it's fine, I'm gonna deal with myself now. So to see
Yeah.
somebody that Heather kind of let in a little bit, kind of throw it back in her face was definitely saddening to see. So Heather deserves better for
I
sure.
know. She definitely did this season. I will say though, I really loved, there was a really sweet moment with her and Terry. And yeah, like they are
Yeah.
who they are. They have their quirks, like
They're
they're
so
so
cute.
privileged, but like they're so cute together. And I just really love their relationship dynamic. And when they went to go and like say goodbye to their house, and she like kicked her shoes off and had the bottle and was drinking out of the bottle, and
Yeah.
on the countertop. Like I just thought that was so cute.
It
Like
was.
I loved that moment for her.
Yeah, that was really cute. And she was dancing with him and he was just kind of like shaking it a little. It was really
Yeah.
sweet. Cause I feel like that is like who she is pre marrying this like very well known, famous, wealthy man. Like she is, that's just who
Yeah.
she is. I just think it's like great to see her kind of still in touch with her acting roots and yeah, just being herself, her silly little self. Love
Yeah.
her. I kind of want to get into Tamara if that's okay, because I'm just thinking of her like opposition in this season, like the flip side of I think who did her the most dirty of them all was Tamara. Like
Yeah.
she came back into the series guns blazing, owning being a total asshole to everybody. And yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot.
Yeah, she's got a lot of energy, that's for sure. And
Yeah.
like Tamara is someone that I always really enjoy watching because she
Yeah.
is so fun, and like I would love to party with her.
Oh my God, yeah.
She's so fun.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I just feel like you can't say anything right. And also her memory is fucking terrible of how something like
Oh my
there's
gosh,
been so
yeah.
many times where she was like saying someone said or did something when it was actually her. She's like, I remember it happened, but
Yeah,
like it wasn't me. There's no way it would be me. And then
yeah.
it was fucking her.
That is such a good point. I didn't even think about like the memory capabilities as a factor in this, but it's so true. Like there's almost like this weird, is it like amnesia? Yeah, like random amnesia with her that just like I totally forgot I said that, or no, this person said this. Wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was really frustrating at times. Like she
Yeah.
definitely had good moments, but it's so hard. Like kind of like Jekyll and Hyde at times. Like I hate to say it, but it's true. Like sometimes she can be so sweet and so genuine and such a good friend. And there's been times where she's stood up for people or said things that I thought was like really good of her to stand her
Yeah.
ground. And then you take that and you just crumple it up and you throw it in the trash and you never look at it again because it's fucking
Yeah.
gone because she's a different person now. Like,
So true. Oh, that's such a good point. I have like another, I have two like big things to say about Tamara. One being
yeah,
that I would just never trust her ever. Like, and I hear what you're saying about her being a really good time, and I would love to go out with her. I think that's why she has such a great bond with Shannon and Vicky, being like the Tres
yeah,
Amigas, like having a lot of fun, getting drunk. 100% I could see myself definitely blending into that circle. But in terms of like outside of the fun times, yeah, I would really struggle. And I know she is a big like this man's not right for you, you deserve better kind of friend, and that is really nice to see, but it just always feels like it's loaded and I just would never trust her fully, you know?
yeah, 100%. She always seems to have like an ulterior motive.
Yeah.
Even when she like was meeting with Shannon and Vicky and she was kind of like, asking some questions and kind of dancing around while knowing that in her
Yeah.
mind at least Heather had shared these details about her relationship. She knew what she was doing by prodding and asking those questions.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you see the smirk on her face and as soon as she gets what she
Yep.
wants and then she spills that, this
Yeah.
supposedly happened with Heather, but it just seems like, yeah, she always has this ulterior motive, and
Yeah.
I just don't get it.
Yeah, I don't get it either. I feel like it's a little bit of, I'm back on the show. I want to really bring the drama so that I
Yeah.
can stay, which I, fair enough, like let a girl do what she's gonna do, but at what expense, like really just like dragging people's personal business out there and really just misplaced blame and ruining friendships. Like the way that she treated Jen in the season, I
Yeah.
mean, Heather was done wrong for sure, but wow, Jen was really treated like garbage by Tamara this season. That was really hard to see.
That was really hard to watch, yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel so terrible because it's Jen's first season and like
Yeah.
probably not what she thought she was signing up for because she thought,
No,
I'm going to go on here with my good
my
friend
friend.
Tamara.
Yeah.
And I totally agree. Like, if you are worried about someone, I think it's great to ask that question in a way that's based on your relationship with that person. You can approach it, but you can do that in a way that's not intrusive, not spreading gossip, you
Yeah.
know. And I just feel like she just wouldn't let it go and kept going on and on and on about it, and it was not fair
Yeah.
at all. Jen's made her choice
Yep.
and you got to support her and you got to let her just do her thing.
Yeah, that is such a good point. I feel like there was also this other dynamic with Tamara where she somehow had this weird power of like changing the way that people thought about her intentions in comparison to Heather. And I don't understand why, because it's not even about longevity on the show. I know Tamara hasn't been on the show for a couple years. That's a whole other separate thing, but it's very interesting to me how like Tamara could somehow turn it around that she wasn't saying that her castmates were idiots, but Heather was, and that if she were saying it, it would be from a funny, joking place, unlike Heather. How did she do
Exactly.
that?
Oh my gosh.
It's
Yeah, she does
wild.
have this power over everybody. It's like
Yeah.
people are afraid to be in the line of fire with her because they know what to expect. They've seen her
Yeah.
do it to just about everybody.
Yeah. And even Heather said that in the reunion. Like, I'm not afraid to be your
Yeah.
friend, but I'm afraid to like cross you because like, I don't know what's gonna happen. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Like it's weird because Emily, for example, which I was really surprised by, like was fully advocating for Tamara's behalf against Heather. And that was really confusing to me. Like,
Yeah. I am not I'm not I don't know. I'm not convinced when it comes to Emily.
yeah, okay.
It's a tough place because she is another Capricorn B, and there are things about her that I appreciate and
Yeah.
respect, but like I just cannot get inside that woman's mind. Like, what the fuck
Yeah.
are you thinking 99% of the time?
Yeah, that is so true. I feel like the season was really tough for Emily. And I kind of put in my notes when I was first watching the season, like, what is going on with her? Like, I really just wasn't understanding where she was coming from. And even Gina had said something to her, like, I feel like you're really reacting strongly right now.
Yeah.
And seeing the reunion of her kind of open up about her relationship with her anger and I really resonated with it and I didn't really expect to, but I think that's also because she is another Capricorn woman. Like I see myself in both Heather and Emily
Mhm.
simultaneously. I think I kind of like flux and flow between the two of them where I want to be like Heather and at my best self I do advocate for myself like Heather
Aw.
does. But then when I'm at like a point where I'm just like maybe not managing my emotions as gracefully as I would like to, I see myself reacting the same way that Emily does. And there is almost this point where I think her biggest thing with Heather is just that. Like Heather is really, articulating herself and making a lot of sense. And Emily is just feeling a lot, but doesn't know how to quite express that the way that Heather does?
Yeah, it's almost like the opposite for the two of
Yeah,
them. And
yeah,
like neither of them are perfect people. They both have their own flaws and they both have their own, ways of expressing themselves.
yeah.
I just I just feel like Emily um and I felt this way about her even previously, like before this
Okay.
season. I struggle with Emily because I feel
Mhm.
like she is so airy and so flighty and like does not I don't see how she's like anchored into something that she can stand for as an individual. I feel like she always just goes with like what other people are saying or feeling or whichever
Yeah.
group is louder. And I'm like,
Mm.
girl, get a fucking backbone. Like, I'm sorry, but
Yeah, no, that is so
I'm
true.
harsh with Emily. And like, I do have a lot of empathy for her. And I appreciate how vulnerable she has been about talking about her childhood and things like that. I definitely like her a lot more when she's on her own.
Mm,
But when she's in a group, she loses me immediately because I feel like she's like this yappy little chihuahua who's gonna go with whoever
yeah.
and just I don't know, it just doesn't do it for me. Period. Sorry, Emily, but
No, I really respect that. That's really funny. I also feel like this is actually a good time to bring up Gina because I'd seen this opinion online. And I never thought about this before, but now that I'm hearing your perspective of Emily, I'm kind of curious if you feel this way.
mm,
People had talked about Gina and Emily not really being friends, but more like coworkers. And I
I
don't
saw
know,
that.
do you feel that way about their relationship or do you feel like it's a genuine friendship?
Oh man.
Because kind of what you're saying is like that she would go along with things and not really like being true to herself. And I kind of feel like that's a dynamic with her and Gina a little bit. Like Gina will be riled up about something and Emily will kind of be like, yeah, like a coworker, like, yeah, fuck
Mm-hmm.
that?
Yeah, I think if you had asked me that last season, I would have said absolutely, like their friendship is meaningful. But after this season, I just feel like when shit hits the fan, there's not as much that really aligns them to each
Yeah.
other. I definitely feel like looking back anyway, at least what we've seen recently, it seems to be more surfaced.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
I don't know. It was
Yeah.
good. Like it was good to see Gina actually speak up and like call her out a couple times and start to branch out and make her own friends a little bit more outside of just her and Emily's codependency with each other.
Yeah. No, that's so true. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm a bit confused by their friendship. I feel like in some ways they are genuine, and I do see this like nice little banter with them and bond through
Yeah.
the other women. And I do think there is this like, especially against Vicky, which I love.
Oh my
Like
God,
when
yes.
Vicky showed up in Mexico to surprise them, they were both like, no. And I feel like that would be me 100% with my friends. But I do think at the end of the day, it's giving coworker.
Yeah, I think at least right now it is. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
But it was super nice to see Gina and her friendship story with Jen. Like, where they started off,
yeah,
Gina struggling with being triggered and totally valid, like, just trying to work through that and
yeah,
then being able to have such good open communication with each other. Like, I
yeah,
feel like it was such a good example. One we definitely don't see a lot on Real Housewives of like healthy, open, honest communication.
yeah. That's so true.
They
Yeah,
did such a great job.
yeah, that is so true. I kind of actually do want to get into Jen now that you mentioned her because we talked
Yeah.
about her earlier, but yeah, I think her presence in this show was really grounding for me. I think she brought a really great energy to conversations and really respectful and very like she gave people a lot of time to explain themselves and she gave people a lot of grace. Um at the end of the day, I kind of wish that she clapped back a bit more, only for herself, not for the drama or not to create any more
Yeah.
problems, but she really deserved a lot more. And I'm really saddened for her that Tamara wasn't a friend that showed up for her a bit more in the way that she maybe had anticipated coming into a show. And her, like, Tamara had been a pretty well established housewife. I'm sure she expected Tamara to show up for her and really defend her a bit more.
Yeah.
But I loved her. I think she handled herself so great. I really feel for her in her dynamic about her relationship. Like, just side note that her partner's clothing is so funny. Tamara's roasting of him is pretty valid.
It is very funny, I will say.
But when they asked her about it at the reunion, she was like, I love him, like that was really
I mean,
sweet.
hey, like, yeah, it's what everyone wants to hear.
What are you gonna do? Like the guy that you were really, really into wears a weird jacket? Are you gonna just like dump him? Because like I think Tamara wanted
Exactly.
her to say that for some weird reason.
She's looking for anything negative to latch on to.
Literally.
Yeah.
Yeah, so true. So I kind of wish that she gave a little bit more, and I think I saw myself a lot in Jen in that way because sometimes I think of ways that I've handled situations, and I think I'm more on the quiet side than of things. So it was kind of I feel like what Housewives gives me this opportunity to see ways that you could react differently
Yeah.
as like a third person. I think Jen really gave that to me. So thanks, Jen.
Oh, that's so true.
Yeah. But Vicky telling Jen, oh man. Oh, so she,
I know.
yeah, her like Vicky coming in and saying, I feel like we're both with men that are not good for us, or that we were at one point, is Rick without even knowing his fucking name.
I know that moment of just like, who's Ryan?
Yeah, she was like, the man you're talking shit about.
Yeah. Vicky is definitely, and Vicky's an Aries, isn't she?
Yes, and
I
same with
think she,
Shannon.
okay, but Vicky, I feel is like the most textbook Aries where she just has this childish thing about her and just gets away with it because you're
Yeah.
just like, oh, that's just her. Like, that's just Vicky. And I am guilty of that in that moment because I was just like, oh my God, this is just fucking Vicky. Like, you can't put any stock in what she says.
Yeah, no, that is so true. Yeah, I think it was funny how and I think that's also what Emily and Gina give the season is like just not taking Vicky credible at all. Because I
Yeah.
think had it been Heather, Tamara, Shannon, it'd be a different kind of dynamic. But having Jen, Gina, and Emily be like, who is she and why is she saying this to me? Like, it's just not
Yeah.
credible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So true.
But yeah, Jen was definitely, I loved her. I hope she comes back. My prediction with her is that I think if Tamara comes back next season, I think Jen will be back next season for sure. She was a pretty great first season. I think there's a lot of housewives that don't perform as well
I
as Jen.
know.
Such a weird
Especially
thing to
on
say.
OC
Yeah, like because we've seen a lot of new housewives not stick, and I think she's
one
definitely gonna
season
stick.
only. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all
So
OC is like the one hit wonder.
it's so true. Like
But
Noella, and there was another woman who I really thought was gonna stay. She kind of looked like Jen too. Forget her name. And then Bronwyn. Like there's just been a lot of
so
people who have come
many.
and go, but I think she is gonna really stay, I think, because of her vulnerability. But just the way that she addresses shit is great. I do think that the conflict between her and Tamara is gonna continue until Jen decides I can't do this, because she just really caves into Tamara's ways.
I
Like,
know.
yeah.
I know. I get like I respect that she wants to be like the peacekeeper and not
Yeah.
have conflict, and she'll probably like, take on more just for the sake of letting it roll off her back and not
Yeah.
have conflict. But I just hope she doesn't do that too much because she does seem really
Yeah.
genuine. And it's also like, if something does happen with Ryan and he does fuck up, like she's probably not going to go to Tamara now. So,
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you totally burned that
uh,
opportunity.
yeah. But she was
Um,
great. I really liked what I saw this season for Jen.
Me too. Yeah, really liked her. I'm glad we feel the same way about that.
Yeah.
I think like something else about Tamara that I definitely wanted to bring up is that there's this weird overarching theme that I think is very particular to Orange County, because I see it in Vicky and I also see it in Shannon, where there's this like spilling shit about somebody, and then as soon as you're around them, you're like, oh, I love you. And you know what? Life's short, and let's just get over it. It's this really weird type of apology that only really exists in OC. And Tamara is like the template of that, where she, like in her confessionals, be like, fuck that bitch. And then she goes to them in person. She's like, I miss you and I miss our friendship and I love you.
I know. I
What is
agree
that?
completely. And Tamara has always been that way, but
Yeah.
I agree. Like it's something that we've seen on OC just constantly, where it's like this impulsive need to like air everybody's shit and call everybody out really, really aggressively, and then immediately demand an apology or just, bully someone into apologizing. Like it's
Yeah,
just
literally. Yeah.
even that's one of the things I was going to ask you too, because Tamara did apologize to Heather at the reunion and she was crying. And I was going to ask, do you think it's genuine? I can see you're already shaking your head. Fuck
Absolutely not.
that.
No, absolutely not. And I think Heather knew that going into it, that, am I even going to get one? Is it going to be real? Probably not. I
Mhm.
really take what Tamara says in that capacity with a huge grain of salt. Because she even apologized to Jen during the reunion crying, and then 10 minutes later said, well, you're a cheater. Like,
Yeah,
she
it's
just, no, she's not capable of like fully apologizing, I don't think.
yeah, you can apologize, like you can say the words,
Yeah.
you can read the
You
words,
can
and like
cry, you
you
can,
can cry, you can do the things, but
yeah.
like if it's not followed up
Yeah.
by actionable steps, then yeah, clearly it means nothing. That was
Speaking
one
of,
thing that, oh, sorry.
no, no, go ahead.
That was one thing that also just quickly bothered me about Emily is I feel like
Mm,
she
yeah.
doesn't take accountability, because there was even one scene where she was like, after she apologized to Heather, she's like, sorry, but I'll probably do it again, to be honest. It's
Yeah.
just like, okay, well, that's kind of like your choice, but sure.
Yeah, that is such a good point. I feel like there was a lot of moments where Emily kept apologizing to Heather, and then a minute later was like, I know that we got over you calling me a snuffleupagus, but like I just find it interesting that you would also find it, the same embarrassment that I would say that you look like a whale train. Like, just drop it. Like, are you past it or not? Like, come on.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, I just want no part of it.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah.
Uh,
Um, I speaking of like groundbreaking apologies, I want to get into Gina and Shannon's battle because holy shit, I feel well, how can people say this was a bad season? Like there was
I
so much,
know.
like there's so much here. We haven't even gotten into like the thick of it yet, I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a lot.
That, yeah, no, it was a lot of back and forth. It was a lot of like weird tension. I will say, like, I have always been a fan of Shannon, and
Same.
I kind of see her as, again, someone who can be like super fun, super down to earth. She's extremely anxious. She's often very paranoid, and I find it charming. Like, I just like it about her, where I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, it's going to be okay. But like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like she also comes to her senses if she's met with that really like earthy, grounded energy. So
Yeah.
I feel like there have been a lot of good examples of that depending on who she gravitates to,
Yeah.
but it's who she's around really changes things and really affects her. And obviously, we know a little bit more about her story and what's been going on behind the scenes,
Yeah.
and can consider maybe how that has affected her, if it is her drinking or her relationship,
Yeah.
who knows? There's been enough rumors put out there this season.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I felt like, I don't know, there were so many conflicts and arguments that I was kind of like, where did this even start? Like, it's just, we've lost track of it. And
Yeah.
now it's just become so, so big. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of like different people that take words with credibility and things that they don't. Like they take what Heather says to Bible, like word for word what Heather says. And then also what Heather doesn't say, they take as being credible from Tamara. And like that's been I think that's added a lot of confusion to the season of like who is really to apologize to who at the end of the day, because
Yeah.
there are people who like Tamara who stirred the pot majorly and caused huge problems between friendships, but she's not really going to be the one to apologize for that at the end of the day, right? Like, and so I think it's made for a very confusing season, and I think Shannon is ultimately contributed to that, unfortunately, with her kind of like harping on and on about like, yeah, but they mentioned my relationship. Like that is a hill that she's choosing to die on. And it's really unfortunate because I think that's causing a huge roadblock between her and other people. Because it's not allowing her to see where other people are coming from, i.e. Sheena. I mean, i.e. Gina.
Yeah.
Like that Gina, where she's coming from is just like, yeah, but you mentioned John, and
Yeah.
there's no moving forward from that place.
Yeah. I also felt like that whole thing was super overhyped. Like,
Yeah.
she was just like, this can't get out. No, this is da, da, da. And
Oh
then
my
it came
God,
out and it
yeah.
was like, okay, like what? Okay. It was
We
just
fight.
so underwhelming. And I'm
Yeah.
like, this is what you were fighting for? Like, yeah.
I do almost feel like personally that there was something bigger there that Shannon somehow negotiated with production to like not air out, and that's why she had such a huge react. Like there's almost this like level of protection of him that to me gave off a red flag, that when it turned out to be like, oh, because we get in fights that hurt my feelings,
Yeah.
it was not landing exactly how she meant it to be. And I've seen her, and we've all seen her through her very tumultuous divorce with her ex, and like there was just something about this conversation with John that just felt like I was seeing that pattern repeat itself again, or like there was
Yeah.
just something more to it. Just the way she was crying about and the way that she was talking about it. And it really hurt my heart for her, because I don't think we'll ever really know. Not that it's any of our business what was going on, but
Mm-hmm.
it was, to me, like her reaction was justified to something. We just don't know what that is.
I think that's so true. And a really good point to make. And I would not be surprised if that was true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really sad. I didn't feel a lot of like frustration or animosity with Shannon this year. I just felt
Yeah.
sad. Like,
Yeah.
I felt like she was hurting,
Yeah.
and kind of grasping at straws a little bit.
Yeah.
Even like her taco night, like her taco and
Oh,
tequila,
yeah.
which would have been so fun, by the way. Like, that would be so fun. I would love to go to that.
Yeah.
But I felt so bad for her around that because, okay, you all got in a fight, but like half of you bailed last minute, and then Emily calling her and yelling at her
Yeah.
for literally no reason, like shaking, holding the phone, so angry. And it's like, this is so misplaced.
Yeah, that is such a good point. I feel like Shannon's whole thing is feeling abandoned. And so
Yeah.
when that happened, a lot of people might say that as her being like playing a victim or whatever. But to me, it just read like that is just how she feel like that is really a deep insecurity of hers that we see in Vicky too. And so I think it
Yeah.
was just like reminiscent of who she actually is and who she's been on the show. And yeah, that was definitely hard to see. I mean, I think that would have been a really cool, potentially drama filled scene if they had just gone. So
Yeah.
it's funny because I think we're coming into an era of like mental health where we're like, I'm not going to go to things that aren't good for me, but then also the show kind of relies on that. So it's
Yeah.
interesting to see like those two worlds collide, and like Emily and Gina just saying, you know what, it's not good for me to go. Like, we kind of want you to go though.
Yeah.
You know,
I know. That's so true.
it's
Yeah.
so
It's
funny.
complicated.
I do have to say though, like I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the Gina and Shannon like dynamic around the CPS comment.
Yeah.
Again, there's like this, pattern similar to Tamra where Shannon just forgets the things that she says, and that was really upsetting to see. No, like actually seeing the clip of her bringing up CPS and then at the pumpkin patch saying, "I never said that." That we've seen that Lisa Rinna, we've seen that across the board, but it was
Yeah.
really upsetting to see. Uh, to see that. And I have to say, like, and I don't say this lightly, that I think that was one of the worst moments on Real Housewives that I've seen. Like, that was really upsetting to see
Mm,
that be done to Gina. And I know that she didn't really mean it in the sense of like her like CPS was going to actually come take her kids, but to even just say that,
yeah.
it's not even like that's not anything to fuck around about at all.
I agree. It's a very low blow, and it's the one thing, regardless of what franchise, every housewife knows that you don't talk about the kids.
Yeah.
And I've heard Shannon say that before as well.
Yeah.
And so it was definitely a hard moment. I am not 100% convinced that Shannon like actually remembers saying that genuinely. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know. But
Yeah, that's so
regardless,
true.
like whether or not she does remember saying it, she still said it. And I feel like it could have just been so much easier if they had talked it out and she had been genuine and said, like, I'm so sorry for this situation. I'm sorry for what I said. And, just have ownership over it and work it out, don't keep denying it, making excuses. It just, I feel like it was just adding more and more of a punch to Gina every time
Yeah.
Shannon made an excuse. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a hard moment.
Yeah, and that is such a good point. Like, yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, I do genuinely don't think that Shannon remembers saying that. But yeah, I think like once it was brought to her attention that she did, it would have been really great to have her just own it and not go at like, yeah, but my relationship, but you were saying this, like, and I don't like you and we're not friends. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter at that point, like to just bring any kind of, yeah. And I think too, like to add salt to the wound too, like knowing that Shannon was kind of using this, like, well, I got a lawyer for her as almost an
Yeah.
excuse to that was really like, if I were Gina, I would be so upset by that. I'm totally sympathetic to how Gina feels about it.
Yeah, I agree. I think Gina handled it more gracefully than anyone ever would have, and
Yeah.
she wouldn't have been, out of line to not handle it that way, but
Yeah.
um yeah, I definitely felt for Gina, and it's kind of a slap in the face like at the reunion when she didn't even know her kids' names. That
Yeah.
was
Oh my God.
pretty uncomfortable.
Oh,
Um
yeah.
but that's where I think like Shannon right now is just grasping at straws, and I feel like she's in survival mode, which is not an excuse at all. I just feel like she doesn't have capacity to like be a genuine friend right now, and it was just really disappointing to hear her like make excuses and not just own up to it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's such a good point. I feel like that would have gone a long way with Gina.
Yeah, I
So,
think so too. It didn't have to be, the big thing that it was and just causing more pain, but it just kept going.
yeah, for sure. I know. Yeah. Well, that kind of wraps Orange County, I think, to a certain degree. Is there any last thoughts about the
I
season that you want to end with?
I guess just, is there anything you wanted to talk about with Taylor? She was kind of
Oh,
on and off a
yeah.
little bit, but we
Yeah.
kind of forgot Taylor.
Oh, Taylor. Yeah. Thanks for bringing her up. she is, I mean, her drunk at that like party was pretty iconic for me.
The
Uh,
taco one?
the one where she was like dressed like a cotton candy.
Oh,
Yeah, she was killing me. I just love that Heather was like, uh-huh.
yeah.
She was really funny. I feel like any kind of meme or just like that scene in general for just like repeating herself is really funny. But yeah, I mean, I love a woman who owns her sexuality and is kind of like, outside of what we would expect out of a Real Housewife. I'm always here for, of course. So that was great of her just owning being bi. I think like the way the other women reacted to it was interesting. Like when she said she was bi and she's like, yeah, I was with a woman for 5 years. And they're like, oh, wow. As if that like kind of makes it more valid was like an interesting
Right.
thing to see. But yeah, I mean, I didn't know that about her. And ultimately at the end of the day, she is a, domestic violence survivor. And I just love to see her continue to talk about that. So I love Taylor personally.
Yeah, that's I have a lot of respect for Taylor, and
Yeah.
like again, OC was the first one I ever watched. I started from the beginning and saw that whole situation go down, and it was just really heartbreaking, and I love to see her thriving now,
Yeah.
and that she's like continued to support um awareness and
Yeah.
the campaign against domestic violence. I think she can be very funny, but I will say, like, personally, I do find her kind of annoying sometimes.
Yeah.
Like she's not always for me.
Yeah.
Sometimes I felt like she kind of stirred the pot a little bit unjustly at
Yeah.
times. But I do respect her as an individual, and I do think she added some good laughs to the show, some much needed laughs.
Yeah. No, that is so true. I think like her beef with Heather around the movie, to me, that was like pretty insignificant.
So petty, yeah.
Yeah, it didn't really, and I think Heather took it that way too, just like whatever. But yeah, I agree with where you're coming from. I do think though that she doesn't get enough credit for being like the first housewife to go from one type of show to another. Like I think that is really cool. I thought she was going to be part of like the core cast, so it was kind of sad to see her just be like a
Yeah.
friend of the show, because I think like there is more to her that I would have liked to have seen play out a bit more. I think that is kind of like the issue with having friends of the show or like not core
Yeah.
cast members, is like we don't see the full spectrum of who they are. But
That's so true.
yeah, but at the same time, like she gave what she gave, and that's fine.
Yeah.
you know 'Cause- and I know we'll talk about Salt Lake City, but Angie K was a friend of the show before being, solid. And to me, she was like actually somebody that I remembered moving forward. So I think you can still show up as a friend of the show, friend of the series, in a way that's impactful. So
Yeah, so true. And that is a great segue into Salt Lake City. Yeah, so again, new cast member Monica.
yeah.
Angie is here permanently.
Yeah, actually, now that I think about it, we have a lot of change with this cast. We have Mary, who's returned. We have Jen, who has left. We have Angie K, who's a permanent housewife on the show. And we have Monica, who's a brand new wife to the show. So we have lots going on with this cast. Immediately, holy shit, there's a lot to break down in only a few episodes. Yeah, there's a lot going on. I can't believe Salt Lake City's only been around for 4 seasons, I think. Three, four.
4.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to me, it's kind of standing in my mind as like a very like well-established franchise, but it's really not.
Yeah.
It's only been a few seasons, so I'm pretty impressed by them.
I know. I totally agree. They've had a huge impact and probably
Yeah.
my favorite franchise.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too. It's funny, like flipping between Orange County and Salt Lake City, because they just give such different vibes. And like sometimes when I'm watching Salt Lake City, I'm like, this is my favorite. And then I'll watch Orange County. I'm like, oh, but this is so nostalgic. Like they just give
I
different things. But Salt Lake City really does hold a special place in my heart.
Yeah, different
Yeah.
flavors.
Another is Meredith is a Capricorn, right? We've established
Oh
this.
no. Okay, so
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
we totally bailed on following up about her sign.
Yes.
Can you, what's your guess? Do you know?
Don't.
What would you guess? So she's not a Capricorn, and what
Okay.
did I say last time? Virgo? She's not a Virgo.
I feel like Scorpio is a bit like Sagittarius.
She's a Sag. Yeah, nailed it.
Nailed it. I've been guessing right on this lately, so I'm like, okay, keep the ball
You're good
rolling.
at this.
Thanks, B. Yeah, I fucking love Meredith. I feel like she's an honorary Capricorn in my eyes.
I know. It's the line is so thin. Yeah, she's amazing. Are we gonna talk about the rumors?
The
The
rumors about her
rumors.
husband.
I can go there with her husband.
That scene and like Heather laughing at it, just like everything about that scene. I don't think I'll ever forget. It's so fucking funny.
I love it so much. And I love that Meredith like posted about it after and she's like, some kind of demon possessed me that
Yeah.
weekend.
God, it was so fucking funny.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, love Meredith. There's a lot to break down about the drama that's currently happening. I
Yeah.
do want to start off with maybe talking about Monica because she's a new cast member too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so last time we talked about Salt Lake City, we had talked about Monica being a little like critical of Lisa being materialistic and going on and on about the $60,000 ring. That theme is kind of continued throughout
Yeah.
the season. I can imagine that Lisa would be really annoying about it, so I can put myself in Monica's shoes and feel annoyed on her behalf. But again, like it's kind of the similar critique of Heather Dubrow in a lot of ways of like it's almost like automatically seen as being stuck up when they just talk about money,
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
And
more
like
just projected.
yeah, and like I'm not the biggest Heather Dubrow fan. I mean, I'm not the biggest. Oh no, I'm a fan of Heather Dubrow. Don't get me fucking wrong. I'm not the biggest Lisa fan of all
Yeah.
time. So for me to kind of like defend her and that is kind of saying something,
That's
honestly.
a big deal. That's a
Yeah.
really big deal. I agree. I'm not the biggest Lisa fan, but I do like what she brings to the show and I
Yeah.
appreciate her presence, but I'm also annoyed by it. It's this weird relationship that we
Yeah.
have.
Yeah. When she had that party that was just like be fabulous, I was like, I'm kind of loving this.
She does throw a good party, I will say.
Yeah. She's funny. Yeah, so like that's been an interesting dynamic. I feel like Monica's brought a lot of realness to the show and has been a lot more, yeah, just bringing that like air. It's very refreshing, and for her talking about being a mother like on her own and being really vulnerable about how her previous marriage ended. I'm just like here for her honesty so quickly. Like her and Jen have been trailblazers, literally.
It's true. I definitely was very impressed with Monica at first, and I loved like you said, what she brings to the show, kind of a fresh perspective, her vulnerability to talk about like her her different experience in the world in terms of wealth compared to some of the other ladies. Just this last episode, I was feeling kind of annoyed because I felt like she did stir the pot kind of unnecessarily.
Yeah.
I was just kind of like, bitch, what was that? Like she's just showing zero loyalty to anybody.
Yeah.
I was really entertained by her, like with Mary being like, my number one goal is to just make this woman my friend and it's gonna
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
But I'm just getting people pleaser vibes and
Yeah.
not like grounded in myself loyalty vibes.
That's
And
so
so it's
true.
kind of like starting to bother me.
Yeah, and I think we actually talked about that last time because she had, I mean, and I don't think Angie needs to be protected, but she kind of was throwing Angie K under the bus a little bit. So it was interesting to see that kind of theme continue. Just,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think that's something that's probably gonna keep happening, but I really have liked her presence on the show. I'm not really annoyed by it, other than Mary. I'm so annoyed. I'm sorry. I'm so annoyed by her. I don't think it's funny. I don't think it's like quirky. I find it really annoying that she just doesn't want to be there and refuses to participate.
Yeah. I totally agree. And I don't know if you watched the Watch What Happens Live or if you saw any of the clips
A
from.
little bit, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we fucking love Z-Way. We
Yeah.
another queen.
Yeah.
Absolutely fucking love her. Another Capricorn queen, I believe.
Mhm.
But yeah, aside from Z-Way being present, I just feel like that was hard to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like she's just extremely negative. She's not having fun. She's not participating. She's bashing everyone.
Yep.
She's like body shaming Heather,
Yep.
like just all these negative things that are very clear in the show that
Yeah.
she's feeling this way and she's thinking that.
Yeah.
But I don't know why she just gets off with
Yeah.
like people thinking she's funny and like, oh, she's so
Yeah.
charming, oh, she's so funny. Mary is just Mary. And it's like, yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah, it's not landing with me, and I think like it could be seen as this like voice of reason almost, despite the drama of this woman who's just like completely checked out. That could be a really funny bit, but if she just wasn't so mean about it, and like the way that she had talked to the bartender at like the last party in the last episode, where this she was like, oh, you didn't want to put it in a box for me, and he was like, I just didn't want to touch it with my hands, and she's like, so you're lazy. Like
I
it's
know.
just it's not. Yeah, so
Ugh,
infuriating to
yeah.
see.
And just even like saying to Monica, I know Monica was like, I don't care. I want her to be my friend. But just like, oh, you don't care what you eat. But then
Yeah.
in every situation she's in, she's like, where the food at? Like,
Yeah, like
what are
I
we
don't
eating?
yeah,
It's
I don't
this
know.
weird energy, and I
It
don't like it.
it could be funny, it's just it's not landing for me personally. So I'm glad we're on the same page about
Same,
that.
B, same.
Thanks. Yeah, I did kind of want to just say before we even get into talking about Whitney and Meredith and Angie that I've been finding that the season the language that's being used is quite like it's quite intense, and I don't think I've seen I mean, I would say Lisa Renna is another one that's coming to mind that would say some really out of pocket shit,
Yeah.
but this one is like it's feeling different this season. Like the energy into what they're saying to each other is like deep, deep
Yeah.
shit. Yeah.
I agree. It's very deep seated. I feel like whatever was going on between filming, like all that conflict,
Yeah.
it just it has been, boiling and built up. And then when they started filming, everyone just came out swinging. Like it just seemed so intense.
Yeah, that's so true. Like disgusting human being, comparing them to animals. Angie K saying that Meredith is a trampoline with eyeballs or something like that.
I don't know.
And then saying that she was going to take either that or take a hit out on her family. Like,
I
I don't,
know.
that to me, when I saw that, there aren't a lot of moments where I see something and I think, oh, that's going to be brought up at the reunion. But as soon as I saw that, I was like, that's not going to go over well with Meredith at all.
I'm at all,
At
at
all.
all. Yeah. As soon as I saw that, I was like, and that's going to be a big blow up at the reunion.
And
Yeah.
everything you say from here on out will not matter because at the reunion, it will all be boiled down to that fucking. And I find it so interesting that Angie K is like, you know, just has said so many horrible things about other people's family and marriages. And then like, it's unfortunate that something's being said about her husband. I'm
Yeah.
protective of him regardless.
Same.
But she has said so many vile things about other people's families that I find it funny. She's like, this is what matters.
Yeah.
Like, girl.
I'm just not buying it. Like the whole
No.
victim,
No.
sitting around crying about it. It's like, okay, you've said very terrible things about other people. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Two wrongs don't make a right, and I get it, but I just
Yep.
don't have any sympathy for her.
No, me neither. I see right through it. I think she's doing it all for the cameras. It's feeling really forced. Like her
Yeah.
coming out of the motel with like a no tricks, no trust t-shirt that she wrote herself. Like she knows what she was walking into. She knows that she was going to a trip uninvited. She's like pestering Meredith, following her around, like just literally poking drama. It's just it's not a nice light. I wouldn't like to be that person in a show personally.
Yeah. I just find her to be very sus, very negative energy. Even like the last episode, I get like she just heard about that rumor that was being said, the rumor. We need like an echo. Um, but like she just would not leave Meredith alone.
Yeah.
And Meredith has a right to walk away from conflict if
Yep.
it's aggressive.
Yep.
And she just kept going at her, kept going up to her face. And even when she was leaving to say bye, she like put her hands on Meredith. Like she
Yep.
didn't assault her or anything, but she put
No,
her
but
hands on Meredith without consent in the context of them fighting
yeah,
and
no.
being in a tense place. And it was just icky. Like it just ugh.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with that. I think it's been interesting to see, and I'm glad that Meredith is still being Meredith and defending herself and won't allow people to touch her in conflict. Like it's giving Jen and her vibes. Just like
Yeah.
lots of boundaries there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Meredith definitely is one to like put up the wall pretty quickly. She's not going to have it. But I also think that's super fair. Like, I know that that can go too far to the other end of the spectrum, but I don't think we're there yet with her and Angie. I think that right now it's totally justified.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. It's almost like I don't even really have much to say about it because it's just so ridiculous, like the conflict between them. The only thing I really have to say is just Whitney and Monica like chiming in to this drama, and I was really confused the last episode, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like isn't Monica that started this like Angie's husband's, because like I know that Whitney is the one who's kind of like going around and saying like, well, Meredith said this and Meredith said that, but the only person that really said it was Monica, and
Yeah,
somehow Meredith is taking the fall for that. Like it's giving Heather to
exactly.
throw. Like it's weird.
Exactly. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
And that's exactly who Whitney is. Like,
Yeah.
Whitney to me is like Emily from OC. She's that little chihuahua who's like, who are we going to get next? Who are we going to, where's the next hit? Like, she's just
Right.
ready to go. And I feel like she just wants to be part of the drama and stir things up. She thinks she's fighting all these like heroic battles,
Yeah.
but she's really just a little chihuahua. Like,
Yeah, I feel like it's almost like justifying this behavior by making Meredith and in Emily's case Heather this like person that is like all consuming, really intimidating, really condescending. And so you're almost like fighting the good fight and you're like being this like hero that's like, no, Meredith, you aren't that. And I'm gonna tell you
yeah,
why. And it's like, who nobody asked you to do this. Like, leave the girl alone. Like she's
yeah.
so like, ugh.
Yeah, I can't with Whitney. She definitely goes down for me in my probably top five most annoying
Yep,
housewives of all
agreed.
time.
Yep.
I just can't. I just
Agreed.
can't.
And I think it's interesting to see like last season, she was going through a lot personally. It was like uncovering a lot of trauma that she had been through. And in her conversation with Heather about the Mormon church, I find it so
Oh,
interesting that Heather is the one who's saying, this is what's traumatizing to me. This is something that really means a lot to me. And I know you feel this way too. And Whitney is just like, what do you want me to do about it, Heather? Like, how can those two things? I'm so enraged by that for Heather.
yeah,
Like it's so annoying.
I know. I definitely feel like Whitney has a double standard for Heather.
Yeah.
Like, she holds her to a much higher standard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like expect so much out of her that she's not giving to Heather. Like it would be really validating for Heather and her trauma to have Whitney say, yeah, like the church does do all this stuff. And like, I agree with you and I support you and I align with you, just as if like that's what Whitney wanted out of Heather last season. And so
Yeah.
it's just so weird to see Heather not, I mean, to see Whitney not, like acknowledge the trauma for Heather when that's what she wanted out of her last season. It's so strange.
I know. Yeah, it's true. Yeah,
Disappointing.
people just came out swinging this season. Like, there's just been so much conflict, and it just
Yeah.
seems to go from 0 to 100 so fast.
Yeah. I think a really good example of that is like seeing Angie talk about her having a conversation with Heather and like Lisa just completely making it about herself. Like like
That
she's just
was,
like,
yeah.
I'm actually triggered by this, and like it's like this whole thing. And I'm like, girl, like it's like take a breath. Like,
I know. Yeah, she just dove right in there, eh? And she's like, this is about me now.
yeah, it was a lot to see. It was a lot to see.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Lisa is a lot.
Lisa's a lot. I've always kind of had this like feeling about Lisa, and this season's kind of validating that. I'm curious what your thoughts are on Meredith and Lisa's, you know, getting through things, I guess, question mark.
Yeah, I think it's totally fair. Like, I think, Meredith is kind of taking the high road a little bit.
Yeah.
I would never fucking trust someone after having that hot mic moment that Lisa had.
No.
And I am positive that Meredith does not and will not trust Lisa ever again.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good point.
Um, but I think she has a right to, like, kind of lay things to rest and decide to move forward in a better way, just hoping for the best. I know also like in this past season, she had her car accident, and it honestly does like put things into perspective when
Yeah,
you
for
feel
sure.
like you've had this near death experience. Like, and I was kind of annoyed, I have to say, by the production, just
Yeah,
like
me too.
totally mocking it. I'm like, okay, clearly you've never been in a car accident in the fucking winter,
I was
like
gonna
in the
say, like,
snow.
that is a very particular type of situation that as I was watching Meredith recount it, I was like, I don't think the people who don't drive in snow understand what this means, because you can be at fully not in control of your vehicle and it just has a mind of its own, and you don't know where it's going to take you, because you could be a really skilled driver and be driving on dry ass road and be like, yeah, I'm going to swerve this way. When you're in the snow, you don't know where you're going.
Yeah.
Like,
And like they showed the cliff she was driving on, and it was a huge
yeah.
bank, like a huge snow hill.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure it was water at the bottom, but it's all snow. Like if they had gone over, they would be dead. Like,
Yeah,
why was that
100%.
so? I don't know. It was just treating it like it was dramatic or over the top. And I'm like, no, this was like a very real experience. And many people go through that, and it's traumatizing.
Yeah, no, and it's so true. Like, to think of that being Meredith's like last social interaction would be really hard to kind of grapple with. Like, people are coming at you and your friends are being shitty to you. Like, I think that's a really fair thing to think about. And obviously
Yeah.
her time with her son is always iconic. So I'm glad that we
Yeah.
had that scene kind of side by side, because it's good to remember that that is who Meredith is. Because I think in conflict, she gets this weird British accent and she kind of can like act a little weird. So to see her like just with her son is really nice. So
Oh my God. Yeah. I love her and Brooks spending time together. Like it's
yeah,
just perfection. So
yeah.
yeah, I'm really curious to see how things go for her in the next episode and through the rest of the season now that she's had that experience.
Yeah, me too. And I think also with Heather, like, we've talked about this before. I have a very complicated relationship with Heather because I love her and I think there are a lot of really great moments with her. But yeah, I think time is just going to tell with how she's going to handle conflict and maneuver things. And her relationship with Whitney, there's some codependency stuff going on there. So I think to see how they navigate that is going to be interesting. But I hope Heather just continues to separate herself from Whitney, honestly. It's not a good friendship.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think it's hard to like see Heather kind of, I guess, not stand strong in her own footing.
Yeah,
Like just
agreed.
seeing her kind of sway and or just brush things under the rug. I
Agreed.
don't know. We love when Heather is strong. We love when Heather stands her ground
Yeah.
for the right reasons.
Yeah.
It was also interesting, like, again, on Watch What Happens Live, Heather was kind of hinting that some stories will be revisited from the
Yeah.
past and that there might be like some closure or like some mysteries solved. So
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear like what that's going to be all about.
I can't even guess. Like, I wish I could give a prediction, but I truly have no idea.
I know. I mean, I'm
Time to
down for
tell.
whatever it is.
Yeah. Another recap.
Another recap. There's so much
Yeah.
to talk about already.
No. Yeah, that's kind of all I have to say about the two seasons. It's been a ride for both of them. I'm so honored to have them both going on at the same time.
I know. I know. Yeah, it's been a ride for sure. I'm super excited for what's next. I love
Yeah.
Salt Lake City. I'm enjoying the ride. It's been bumpy, but yeah, we'll see what happens next.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining, everybody. And I would love to hear thoughts and feedback on some people that maybe we loved and maybe you didn't, and vice versa. I just would love to hear what other people have to say about Orange County and how things are going for Salt Lake City. Predictions would be really fun to read too, and we can touch base on them at the end of the season. I think that'd be really
Yeah.
fun. So,
Oh my gosh, that would be fun.
yeah, send in your predictions. But until next time, we will see you on Can't Be Bothered.
Bye bye.